Alrighty, guys, thanks for joining me. This is your host, ID Jester. It's my pleasure to bring to you another fantasy book review here on my channel. So, this one here is actually called Nightblade's Vengeance. Its author is Ryan Kirk, and it is book one from the Blades of the Fallen. You can see book two is already out called Nightblade's Honor, also by the same author. This is an Oriental fantasy series. It was published October 24th, 2017. It's 329 pages long. Although I have this both on the Audible and also in the PDF format. I don't own an actual copy of the book. The audio is 12 hours and 40 minutes long. I will try to make this review as spoiler free as possible, but just keep that in mind. I don't want to try to ruin anything in case you decide to try this book out for yourself. But I am going to give you some things that might clue you into some things that may happen during the adventure. So just keep that in mind. I will try to keep this as spoiler free as possible. So we're going to keep this as the same format. We're going to talk about the pros. We're going to talk about the cons. We're going to give you some excerpts from the books so you can see how the author's writing is and if it's something you would be interested in. And then we're going to give you our final conclusion thoughts and rate the book on what we thought. So this is Nightblade's Vengeance by Ryan Kirk. Let's talk about the pros first. So, book pro number one. This was a short and sweet fantasy, Oriental fantasy novel. You learn about their characters, you learn about their motivations, their goals. Then you have the adventure, and then it kind of all wraps up in this one book. Their goals and desires all kind of happen during this one novel, which is super good. It's only, like I said, 329 pages. So there's nothing worse than somebody standing here holding 6 huge, thick books and going, here's a fantasy novel for you. This one is going to be short. It's quick. As you see, there is a second novel of this. I don't know if it picks up the story from where it left off or if this is a separate adventure or whatever. But the first book of the series, Nightblade's Vengeance, kind of introduces you to the characters. It introduces you to the setting. It gives you their goals, their motivations, their desires, what they want to accomplish, what they're fearful of, and then you go through the adventure, and then it kind of wraps up in one book. It's very nice, short and sweet. So definitely a pro there. If you're not looking for a huge fantasy series to get into, you just want to sit down, do a nice adventure, read it in a day, couple days, maybe a week, and be done with the story, and then pick up the next book in this series when you get a chance. Pro number two. There are only a few main characters. There are a few what I would call side or support characters as well, but there's only a few main characters that you follow along during this adventure. And most of them are located in this one section of this fantasy place. And so what that means is you're not bombed with tons and tons and tons of names and places and details and histories and pasts and all that. So there's only a few characters to learn about, a few side characters that come in, and mostly you're not overwhelmed with all the information. You're not photo bombed time after time, page after page with characters' names and places and trying to remember who this character is and what their motivations are. So there's just a few main characters and a few locations, and you learn them quickly, and you're not having to spend time thinking about how this person's related to this person and what kind of motivation this person has compared to their 6 cousins, aunts, daughters, boyfriend, something crazy like that. So that's very nice as well. It's not super in depth with tons and tons of just names and places and everything. So definitely a pro there. Number 3 in the prose. This story lives up to a true adventure. What I mean by that is the characters have true motivations and true desires based upon the events and things that happened in their past and the history of what had happened. And you see that when one of the characters tasked to go find some information and kill this person. And they go and they confront this person and they find out the information, and it's not like, oh well, I miss goody two shoes, so I'm just going to let you live type thing because I got the information I need. No, it stays true to kind of the desires and motives that these characters have. They're not kind of forced, which is really nice. They have these desires, they have these motivations, and they're going to stick to them. And they look at the big picture and they stick with what their character is going to be doing, and how their character would feel. And it makes you feel that these characters really do have these desires and motivations, which is really nice. There's no him hawing around and, well, I don't know about this, I don't know about that. But there is a caveat to this, which we'll talk about in the cons. And then pro number 4. This book, as I mentioned in the beginning, is a fantasy series, but it's also an Oriental fantasy series. So it has that Oriental feeling and motivations and desires with duty, honor, self-sacrifice, the appearance of the characters, what they look like, just having your sword hanging from your left side as opposed to your right side. How is that going to change how people perceive you? Things like that. And noticing and bringing in little details that are very important as well. So it brings in that Oriental theme, but it's done in a really good way. It's not page after page after page of Oriental themes. It gives you the Oriental themes: duty, honor, respect, self-sacrifice. It gives you those, but it doesn't flambaste you with every kind of Oriental theme. It's done, I think, in a really good way. And the way I would say it is, it makes it interesting, but it doesn't flood you with that. So all these 4 pros to Nightblade Vengeance. Now, let's talk about the cons, if you don't mind. So con number 1, there is one big shocking event that happens in this book. But for me, and I think a lot of people out there, is probably pretty easy to figure out, towards the end, what this shocking event and the unfolding of the character's realization. I think the reader figures this out before the actual characters in the book figure it out. At least for me it was. I could be different. You might not get that out of the book, and it might be a shocking revelation to you, but it wasn't for me personally. So for me, that was kind of a con because I had figured out ahead of time what this big shocking event was going to unfold. The author seemed to make it a very big thing, but for me it was like not a big thing because I already knew that. So thanks. So that was con number 1. Con number 2, and this is a biggie, we talked about this in the pros, but we're also going to bring this down to the cons here, and that is the ending to the book. It seems to put in conflict what the rest of the book does when we talk about duty and honor, self-sacrifice, the thinking about the whole. Again, this is hard for me to describe and explain without giving you details, and I don't want to do this because this is going to be spoiler-free. But basically, one of the characters is tasked with protecting another character, and another character's task is to go kill this character. So if this character, we've been talking about duty and honor. If your job is to protect this other character and you know this person's going to go kill him, are you just going to let them go? And especially since the character who has to go kill that other character is on a very extremely dire, important mission. And you know that. And if his failure in this mission is going to change the history of yourself and your world and the events that unfold, and are you just going to throw your hands up and let this other person go after that character that has to create, is tasked with that such important mission? And if he doesn't complete this mission, everything's going to change. But, oh, okay, I'll just let you go kill him then, even though my job is to protect him and watch over him. Now, there is a caveat to that, and I'm going to tell you this. So this might be a little bit of spoiler-ish type stuff, but the character does tell the character that is tasked with protecting him, hey, if this person comes after me, let them come. Okay, so there is that part to it. But still, we've been talking about the book and the importances of the characters' motivations, and they feel real, and they feel, duty, the Oriental, duty to self, duty to country, duty to your beliefs. And then is this character going to say, well, okay, I'll just let you go after this person, even though he's on an extremely important mission, and face off against him? So that the ending kind of, for me, put in conflict with what the characters have been showing you the whole book. Now, maybe because that character was told by the original person, hey, if this person comes after me, let them come. Now, maybe that was enough, but still, for me, it wasn't. So the ending for me put a little bit of I wouldn't say a sour taste in my mouth or anything like that. It wasn't that bad. It was just, after you get done reading, you get to thinking, couldn't there have been something this other character done? Try to convince this person that, hey, this person's on an important mission, or your goals and desires aren't important as the desires for, everyone has their own goals and desires. Okay. And it's kind of hard to explain without giving it away. But for me, he could have done something to try to stop the person or convince this person not to go after that, the character that the person wants to kill. Try to convince them, try to show them that their own desires aren't as important as what as the good for the whole. And that's kind of the other thing that this book brings in, is characters have these goals and motivations, and then throughout the novel and some of the characters, again, I'm not trying to give things away, but some of the characters learn that there's more than just themselves and their own desires and their own motivations. And sometimes self-sacrifice is giving up your goals and motivations for the good of something else that's more important or bigger than yourself. And these characters learn this throughout the novel when different adventures and different things that happen during the novel. And then for that character to say at the end, well, I don't care, I'm going to complete my own special objective that I want to do because it's what I want to do. So it's kind of between that and the fact that this other character doesn't help or protect or try to convince this other character that it's not in the right interest of everything. So the ending for me, because of all that, was a little bit, like I said, it wasn't bad, it wasn't destroyed, it didn't hamper the enjoyment of the book. For me, it just put conflict in my head as to the motivations for the characters, and if it was what would have really happened, if that was a true situation. I mean, if this is a real life situation and I was that character and I was put in that situation, would I continue looking at my personal goals? And even though I've learned that my personal goals sometimes is making self-sacrifice for the betterment of everyone can be more beneficial to myself than my own goals are. Hopefully I explained that okay for you guys. So that was number 2, and it was quite a doozy. But then we bring up number 3, which is even a worse doozy, I think. That is, in this book, some of the characters have this special ability called the sense. And basically think of it as the ability for them to sense other powerful characters that also have the sense. So it's kind of like almost being able to detect and feel and know that, okay, if I had the sense and somebody else had the sense in the next room, I would know they were there because we have this special ability. I can feel your special ability, you can feel my special ability, and we have this special ability called the sense. Problem I have with this is the characters somehow, some way can turn on the sense and turn off the sense, and when you turn off the sense and other characters don't know that you have this special ability, and for me it just didn't work that well because they could turn on, turn off this ability out of like the flick of a switch. Ooh, I'm going to use the sense. Oh, I'm not going to use the sense. Ooh, I'm going to use the sense. No, I'm going to turn it off. And oh, I need to use it so I can find out my way out of this prison cell or find my way into this uh, highly guarded castle. But then I can't use my sense because other people will know that I'm here. Just for me, if the characters have the sense, great. If they don't have the sense, great. But being able to turn it on and off kind of took the specialness of this sense away because it just it's like use the force, Luke, and it's like, oh well, I can use the force when I want to, but I can also not use the force when I don't want to. See, that just doesn't make sense for us, right? Because we've grown up with these you either have the abilities or you don't have the abilities. So when you don't have the ability, or you have this ability and you can turn it on and turn it off anytime you want, it doesn't. It kind of took away. I there was important story elements that happened where they had to turn it on or turn it off because of okay, I don't want people to know that I have the sense, and I don't want people that have this special ability to be able to detect me. And then I also, so there was story elements where they had to turn the sense off, and then there were certain situations where they had to use the sense to complete different objectives. And so being able to turn it on and off the special ability, for me, it just uh, it's like I said, it didn't take away from things, but it made it a little, almost a little gamey, a little fishy. I've got the special ability, but I'm not going to use it because I don't want other people to know I've got it. And then one of the characters is being hunted by someone, but she can't detect him because he turns the sense off, so she doesn't know where he is. And yeah, it's a little, it's a little bit like that. So those are the cons. The one big shocking event that didn't actually surprise me, at least, the uh, the ending, which put a conflict into the rest of the book, and then this special ability where they can turn it on, turn it off, however they want. So those are kind of the cons I took away from this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to give you some excerpts from the book, let you listen to how the author writes, the way his sentences or phrases and put together or whatever, so you can see if it's something you might be interested in. All right, so this is from page 317, Blades of the Fallen, Book 1, Nightblade's Vengeance. His mind crackling, Miori realized he wouldn't have time to cut through the wire before Shin's Nightblade's hunting unit arrived. Miori's yell was deep and tore at his throat. It couldn't end this way. But he didn't see any way out, and one of the hunting parties assembled behind him. Miori turned to face them. He knew he didn't have a chance. He had already been deeply cut by the wires, and his left arm was almost useless. He thought he had maybe lost an eye to the wire as well. But he wouldn't die without a fight. He would die on his feet. So that's excerpt number 1. Excerpt number 2 from page 164 and 165. Again, Nightblade's Vengeance, Book of the Fallen, Book 1. It was Miori who sent me... Sorry, let me start again. It was Miori who sent the men after me. He knows that I know he's a Samu. Kiyoshi leaned back, his mouth wide open. How do you know? She shook her head. I don't have any real proof yet, which is why he's still alive. But when I met with him, he told me that he'd been at Two Falls. What he didn't know was that I had looked at the list. I know every blade that was at the battle, and Miori's name was never on the list. So that's page 164, 165. And finally, from page 68, again, Nightblade's Vengeance, Book of the Fallen, Blades of the Fallen, Book 1, sorry. Koji bowed to his guest, and Miori returned the bow, although less deep. His eyes ran over the captured Nightblade. Koji looked as though he was being cared for. His eyes were bright, and there was no sense of abuse. Miori wasn't surprised. The guards would fear even to chain Nightblade, and from the way this one had held himself, Miori agreed with the assessment. The boy was stronger than Miori had led to believe. He could sense the energy radiating from the captive. All right, so there's a couple of phrases or sections from the book, just to give you a little bit of overview of the writing style and stuff. You can go to Amazon. I think you can read the first, I think like 10 or 12 pages of the book for free. Just go and check it out. I should mention, I think I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the review. It is rated 4.2 stars out of 5 on Amazon, and I think it had like 78 reviews at the time of this recording. So now let's talk about my personal review, my feelings of the game, there we go. My review of the game. So I'm going to rate it 3.5 out of 5 stars. As talked about, there's a lot of advantages to this book. There's short, it's sweet. It kind of captures the adventure in one novel. It's not that long of a novel. You can pick it up, read it in a couple days and be done, and then pick up book number 2, Nightblade's Horror, and find out the next adventure. But I think this one kind of wraps up nice, and it's almost like there wasn't, like how some fantasy novels go from book to book and they pick up where it happened. This one kind of everything kind of climaxes at the end, and then that's it. And the characters' goals and motivations are either completed, or they're dead, or they're not around anymore, or whatever. So it kind of climaxes in one quick novel. Like I said, I don't know at book 2 if it continues on and picks up the story, or if it's a new adventure with the same characters doing something else. So it's nice, it's quick, it's an easy story, and there's some good writing to it. Don't get me down on the cons, as we talked about. I'm just giving you my honest opinion. There are some cons for me personally, but again, all in all, I think it's a good 3.5 stars out of 5. It was, I'm happy I read the book. I enjoyed reading the book. I got through the entire book. I listened to it. In the audio, on the way to work, on the way home, and then I'd pick up and read some at home or whatever. Was done with it pretty quickly. And like I said, it was a good break. It gives you a nice Oriental fantasy theme. You're not going to be using the same old boring magic and sword, although there's a lot of swords and kind of think of like samurai and ninja type setting. Okay, so there are swords and stuff, but it doesn't use the same old fantasy magic system and the same old fantasy kingdoms and this kingdom's at war with this kingdom and stuff. It kind of gives you that um, duty and honor, respect, self discipline, appearance, kind of things we think about when we think about good Oriental history and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's very nice. I didn't have anything really glaring with the book, although, like I said, the cons for me were cons. The pros were just as good. The fact that you don't have to learn 5,000 different names and 5,000 different characters and 5,000 different locations and learn all about the history of this fantasy place and have, you know, be overwhelmed and smacked in the face by 20 different characters every page of the book, which is a very nice switch from going from a regular fantasy novel. So that was also highly nice. And like I said, the Oriental theme is thrown in, but it's not like slapped in your face every single page with new things to learn. And the writing was fine. The writing was good. It was a good story. I wouldn't have completed the book if it wasn't a good story. It wasn't. It wasn't fun and interesting read. I think it was. Yes, I wouldn't say it's a great novel, but I would say it's definitely above average, 3.5 out of 5 stars. And I think if you want to pick it up, it's pretty reasonably priced on Amazon for the Kindle edition, or I also got the Kindle and the uh, what's it called, the Audible edition as well. Picked up both of those. I think it was less than $10, and it's nice and quick and easy, and quite an enjoyable time. So I would recommend it if those things that we talked about in the review don't bother you, and if you're looking for something quick and easy to get into and read in a day or a couple days and not be overwhelmed by having all the typical fantasy characters and settings and places and history and gods and just piled on at page after page after page. If you want to take a break from that, definitely check out Nightblade's Vengeance from Ryan Kirk. So there you go. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next review.